Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of Introduction to Mindfulness. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, mindful eating, and something that really transformed my life. I think food is something that's quite complicated for a lot of us. We have a love relationship with it. I wouldn't say love hate, but I think the kind of love that we have for it may not be the healthiest of loves. We often use food as a substitute for so many different emotions that we're experiencing, and indeed the signals within our body give us triggers, a lot of which food can give temporary solace to. But as we know, with the things that we really want, that a substitute never is quite the same thing. And the other problem with using a substitute is that you can keep on taking in the substitute, but it will never give you 100% satisfaction. And much more worryingly, when you try and block off that substitute, the reactions within your body are quite dramatic and quite unpleasant, because essentially it's your brain saying, hey, listen, I wanted X, I didn't get X, so I'm pouring my love and I'm seeking out Y. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining again. And when I don't get my Y, then the monster in me is going to come out and I'm going to do everything I can. Don't you dare stop my why. So that's kind of what's behind some of our unhealthy eating patterns. There are, of course, many. The basic format of today's is that, first of all, I hope everybody's brought their piece of food, piece of fruit, piece of a little bit of nuts or anything to eat. We're going to eat together. And the focus of it is to how to find true enjoyment in eating, true nourishment in eating, and also for us to get rid of some of the fluff around the process, such that food serves the main purpose and the most wonderful purpose that it's meant to serve. So as always, questions are most welcome. I have a very relaxed format, and most of this session is going to be about the actual, but let the questions come in. They are most welcome. I'll start by saying there was a very powerful line that I learned again from my teachers, which said, "Don't eat your thoughts." Now, I didn't quite know what that meant, especially since they were saying it to us at the dining table. And if you think about it, let's look at how we actually eat on a daily basis. Our meals are so hurried. We're often checking messages on a phone while we're wolfing food down, or we've just come out of one meeting. We have like a 10-minute break, grab a quick meal. We sort of just wolf it down again, and we're back into war zone, into the urban jungle, into our big, we're going to conquer this world mode again. Now, our brains are not so complex. It's quite simple what's happening inside, at least in this respect. We have two big systems in our brain, which is the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, my favorites. And the sympathetic system is the one that we're all a lot more familiar with. It's the fight, flight, freeze trigger. And when that gets triggered within our brain, as it must, because our brains haven't evolved very much since our caveman days. And we need this in order to be able to escape danger, in order to be able to fight, in order to be able to make ourselves invisible when we don't want attention drawn on us. Now, this is quite instinctive. And once this gets triggered, there is no 20%, 30%, 40%. It's like an on-off switch within our brain. What this does is also that it puts a lot of other systems more or less on standby, one of which is the parasympathetic system. Both of these work together in concert. You need the sympathetic system in order to trigger all of these responses. Our pupils dilate, our breathing gets shallower. It's what gets us ready to run, pumps hormones through our body. But it also puts our digestion on hold. It makes us sweat more. I'm probably on my parasympathetic system slightly alerted right now because I'm doing a Facebook Live. You don't ever, some of us don't ever get used to these things. It is always a little nerve-wracking even for me. So all your love is much appreciated. Now, the parasympathetic system is popularly called the rest and digest. Okay, now that's also the time within our bodies where our body heals, it repairs, it does so many other functions for our overall well-being. And we're not at either extreme. We kind of swing from one to another at different times of day. We're more inclined from one system to another at different times in our lives. Children are a lot more parasympathetic. As we grow older, we tend to become more sympathetic. And I don't mean that sympathetic as in like other regarding, as in like we are much more prone to anxiety. We're much more prone to fight or flight. Where this fits in for today is try and think of the impact that it has on our eating, on our digestion, on our overall wellness, and on the whole holistic system that is our body. We are eating our thoughts. So when you come to your plate anxious, full of stress, in a hurry, and distracted, you're eating all of this. All of these hormones, all of these impacts are on your body. And quite literally, for the food itself, not just the thoughts, the food is essentially what makes your body up. Now, I'm not an extremist in that, and no, I don't live on salads, and no, I'm not like this extremely healthy eater. The rule of thumb is quite simple. If you're doing it right 80% of the time, and by right, I mean the basics, which is that you're getting your macronutrients, you're getting good carbohydrates, which is going to fuel your body, give you wellness signals, make you feel calmer, and give you lots of energy. Good, lean, healthy protein. And no, it doesn't have to come from animal sources. A lot of vegetarian foods have it, but no judgment there. We'll talk a little bit about the different kinds of foods, and some amount and a small amount of healthy fats, a lot of which you'll get from just eating your nuts, avocados. And of course, if you're eating meat and eggs, you're getting fats from there as well, and milk as well. Now, these are the basics. So it's quite simple. I think Michael Pollan is a very famous writer in the food space. Very simple. Eat mostly whole foods. Eat whole foods. That's not processed foods and not refined foods. Mostly plants and vegetables, not a lot. So there's no need to starve yourself. There's no need to look for the next big food fad. If you've got the basics covered, and we see this so much in our line of work, myself as a coach, my nutritionist friend, silver bullet to fitness when we don't even have the basics covered. So let's do that first, and then we'll move on. And what I'm helping for us to do today is add an element of mind to it, so that we bring the entirety of ourselves, so that we connect with loved ones, and also that we enjoy our food. We shouldn't be tyrannized by what's on our plate, and certainly shouldn't make us cry, okay? Because you're eating those thoughts as well, remember that. So what is mindful eating? Something, again, this is not from any one religion. Every religious philosophy, every culture has mindful eating in some form. I'm so happy to hear that there are people who are already doing that, joining us, and also having some healthy concoctions. Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Mindful eating is bringing, as with anything mindful, is to do something consciously and to enjoy the present moment, and for us to create community through this process. Now, in these days of self-isolation, I actually know of friends who connect across a video call and are sitting in two different places and eating. So that's something you could try as well. And for now, all of you, please join me in this. The first step is not the actual eating. The first step is to bring all of ourselves. So the easiest way to do that is for us to take 3 breaths. And I'm going to tell you what we're going to use each breath for. If we're thinking about it, we're more likely to do it. Breath number 1 is for us to just stop all thoughts, all our worries, all our anxieties, anything that's bothering us right now. Put your phone on silent so that you can be fully present. Breath number 2 will be to bring a small smile to your face. Again, we don't want this to be about extreme concentration. We don't want this to be about when we're frowning, our brain also gets a signal to behave a little bit more anxious. And the third breath is to do a reset, that we're now ready and we're now fully present. So 3 breaths together. First breath, stop all external thoughts. Second breath, bring a small smile to your lips. Sorry, I smile a lot. Third breath is a reset. Bring a little bit of body consciousness. Which reminds me also, how we sit and eat makes a big difference as well. Do you know that there was a Bloomberg article that reported that in India, of course, we used to sit on the ground, cross-legged, over our food and eating, often from a leaf or a thali. And that process actually compressed our stomachs. Added to that, we wore non-elasticated clothing. So whether it was a dhoti or a kamarband that women wore, so you can't see my waist here, whatever it was, the idea was that there was some sort of pressure or limits on how much our stomach could take in. And so that made a big difference to our obesity levels. Guess what? Once modern furniture came into India, once we started sitting at right angles and sitting down, or standing and eating, or running and eating on the go, eating from QSRs, eating fast foods, all of this led to an So when in doubt, always go back to the basics. Most of the nutritionists are telling you that in one way or the other. I'm saying even in terms of lifestyle. Sit down, have a meal together, like literally down on the ground. It's also great for the hip flexors. Right, now that we've taken our breaths, we've come to the present, we're conscious of how we're sitting at the table. The next thing we're going to do, again, that finds a presence in every culture, is bringing a little bit of awareness, bringing a little bit of gratitude to this. Why we do that is because one of my favorites, it's not a prayer, it's Carl Sagan's quote, and he said that if you want to make an apple pie and make it from scratch, you have to invent the universe. Think about it for a minute. What do you think that means? It literally is that the apple didn't just come from your fridge. It came from a market. It was brought there by a supplier who picked it up from a farmer who grew it on a field, some other part of the country, or from another country even. Somebody flew it down. The fields were watered with water from the rains, which came from the mountains, which were 650 million years old, which came because the earth came into existence. The earth came because of the Big Bang. The Big Bang, okay, you're getting the picture, right? So again, it might sound dramatic, but when you have that awareness, the way you eat your food changes completely. The appreciation, the things that you focus on, that which you give your attention to grows stronger. So let's choose what we can give our attention to, because this is also what fuels our body. It nourishes our body, and it in turn nourishes our mind, our thoughts as well. And today our longevity is predicted to be, technically we're supposed to be able to live to 120. We don't, largely because of lifestyle diseases. So think about it. If we have to live long anyway, we might as well make it a good life. And like I said, enjoyment and fun is a very important part of a good life. So rather than looking for, that why, which is that extra that we need to, we can enjoy the simple things and the simple pleasures of life as well. So different forms of prayers. Essentially, it's thanking every person and creation and event in the past that has brought this food to your table. If the person that cooked your food is there, and if you are that person, give thanks for that as well. Eating with gratitude floods our body with well-being, puts us in parasympathetic mode, allows us to extract the most out of that food and enjoy the most out of that food as well. Again, it's a myth that mindful eating has to be done very slowly. As a meditative practice, we do that again in the monastery, but for everyday life, you can eat reasonably quickly, but you can still eat with that being the critical factor. So take a moment, and part of the prayers that we say, again, relate to giving thanks to just how far back the food goes, but allowing us to eat consciously, everything that we eat does hurt the planet, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, non-vegetarian. Okay, so rather than causing judgment, let's just be aware. There are so many cultures that honor where the food come from. Okay, whether it's from the field, whether it's from the sea, whether it's from an animal. Some animal has given up its life to feed you today, so the least we can do is honor that life and eat it consciously. And for those who've had conflicts about, I'm vegan and I'm being so much more good for the planet, do keep in mind that I, for example, eat plant-based, but I have 2 kids, which is one of the worst things I could have done for the planet in terms of environmental health. Okay, as my good friend Suresh reminded me. So it's not about creating any kind of intolerance or judgment. Again, it's about making your choices consciously. Shall we move on now to our eating? Take a moment, close your eyes, choose your prayer. We have grace in Christianity, Judaism, in Islam, in Hinduism, in Buddhism. Pick your prayer. I'm not going to say it. Welcome. If you're sitting at a table, and if you're doing this right now, the first step is to look around at each other. We're welcoming everybody in. Okay, this is not the best time to jump into conversation because we need to be mindful about what we're putting onto our plates. I have today an orange, like I promised you yesterday. Again, this is how we're going to start. We are going to serve ourselves some food. Start with a little bit to start with, okay? Because we often come from a place of scarcity. We have this feeling in our head, and a lot of us still have this, and we still remember times when there wasn't a lot of food in our lives. And again, we might be in such a situation with the current sort of lockdown that we're facing, but do keep in mind that there is enough to nourish us, to keep us alive, to keep us thriving, and that if we come out of this fear-driven eating, we're likely to in fact eat a lot less and have a lot more to give others as well. Right now, most of us are definitely eating way more than our need. You've got your food in front of you. Take a moment to appreciate it. So much of our appetite is not really based on signals within our body. They have to do with the visual of it, with the environment, and also with our relationship with the food. So take a look, enjoy the smell of it. This just takes a second. And in silence, and with that smile still on, we're going to start eating. Now, a few tips for the eating. Please do join me. This isn't a demo. I'll feel your connection if you're eating with me as well. Plus, I'm going to eat up all my lipstick now, so, I love the smell of oranges. And look at this. My orange looked very green on the outside. If I passed judgment on it, I was going to say, oh my God, this orange looks raw. I'm sure it's going to be very sour. I've already changed my mood. I've already changed my expression. I've already changed the hormones in my body. Okay, it's an orange. That's it. I'm going to open it up. Now, again, we tend to take off all the fiber. We want everything cleaned, skinned, made like baby food, mushed up. But you know what? We're animals. We should be eating all of this. And the more of a food that we can consume, and that goes with meat and fish as well, the less wasteful we're being. And even if you think that, hey, I'll just buy the chicken drumsticks and the rest of the chicken somebody else will take care of, keep in mind that all of that has to go somewhere, has to be processed separately from where it's being processed to bring you your part of the food. So the more we can get over our feelings of aversion towards certain kinds of foods, the more mindfully we can eat. So here we go. When I put my food in, we're going to chew slowly. I'm sorry if I've been holding your food up for a while. Try and chew like 10, 15, 20, depending on how fibrous your food is. Enjoy it. Enjoy the flavors around your mouth. Keep in mind, digestion begins here. We have digestive enzymes in our mouth. So if you're just going to like swallow your food, like my dogs do, you're going to miss a very important part, not just of digestion, but also the biofeedback that, hey, the brain's suddenly realizing that, oh, food has reached us. And now let's start the process of digestion. Let's get those juices flowing. Join me. That was amazing. It was sweet. It was juicy. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Did you enjoy your bite? Now you guys can keep eating. Thank you, Parveen, and for joining us. Um, let's address a few questions that we have here. If you're going to do this with your family, a nice way to do this is by getting everybody together, have people take turns in saying any kind of prayer and allow them to make it up. Kids come up with the most beautiful prayers and imaginative and creative ways of appreciating their food. On that note, if you have children in the house, it's also a more mindful, conscious practice to show them where food comes from. Very often we waste a lot of food, especially animals and eggs and milk and fish, because we force feed them, we serve them too much, but also because they have no idea. There's actually a generation of kids that needed to be told that milk comes from a cow because they've only ever seen it come from a carton. So yeah, and there are cultures in which parents expose the children to the killing of the animal as well through prayer, and it's also for them to see where food comes from. So there's a thought right there for you. If the first few minutes can be spent eating in silence, it's just a time for us to give our brains that feedback, get our digestion going, be aware of our food, and pace ourselves, set our pace. And if your food is already served on your plate, then you also know how much there is, and you can eyeball how much you think you're going to need, and then do 80% of that. Okay, you know that this is quite a common number for that. Oops, we're out of time today. So first few minutes in silence, and then you can speak. I will encourage even children to serve themselves rather than us trying to force feed them. Science, I think, has now evidence that no child is the healthiest children. So let's get some of our heads. Another quote, I'll just leave you with this one, is one from my favorite author. And she says in the book that food is one part brain and gut and 2 parts ego. Okay, again I'm misquoting. 1 part mouth and nose and 2 parts ego. Again, take a moment to think about that. I found that hilarious and so true. Okay, the smell of food, the taste of food, all of this lasts 5 seconds. And then we want to call ourselves food snobs, drink snobs. By the way, in my invitation, I also included a bottle of beer, because mindful eating also includes mindful. I'm not going to tell you this, but if you can try a meal and a drink of any sort after this, I'd like you to see how you feel when you've eaten it mindfully, and kind of see whether you get how full you feel, how fast. Okay, keep in mind, University of Michigan's got an interesting study. There are 3 aspects to food. There's hunger signals, hunger pangs. Growling is not necessarily a sign of hunger. It's just normal digestive sounds. True hunger pangs set in several hours after your last meal. Full signals, as you know quite well, take time to get triggered in the brain, but again are quite dependent on your hormones and your glucose levels. So guess what? And the most which is God help, it's influenced by so many other things. How many times have you found that when you're watching something on TV and the characters are eating like a big juicy burger, and you think, oh, big juicy burger, let me just quick call for it on an app. We can do that now. But keep in mind that there are marketers, there are neuroscientists who are exactly where to place that food, how long to place it for, and it doesn't even have to be a brand, to encourage you to do exactly this. So be aware of these triggers, and if you're going to be eating consciously, mindfully, there's going to be, again, a domino effect across different parts of your body, mind, wellness, and family. Okay, love is not feeding, is community. So bring that together, and you can have the simplest of meals joyously and wholesomely and consciously. Thank you again for joining us. We've exceeded our time. Tomorrow is going to be the first of the pure meditations. We'll do a simple breath meditation. Again, the whole idea is enjoyment. So you'll have many, many options to do it. Again, wear comfortable clothing. I'll tell you the different ways in which we can do it. And for now, it's almost 1 o'clock. Please enjoy a mindful meal. And thank you so much for joining me today.